Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen. Each week while working on the new album, the Dead Milkmen ask each other a question. Tonight's big question is about music. Must be on the wrong show. Jerry, Sylvia, get down here. No, tonight's question, believe it or not, is actually about music. And it is, what band or musical artist or duo or mime troupe does not fit neatly into any particular genre? And, there's always an and which band or musical artist or duo, et cetera, do you name as an example of a particular genre? All right, I will go first because my question, and I will tell you right now, I'm giving the band that doesn't fit neatly into any musical genre, Rosegarden Funeral Party. And there is a couple big reasons for this. One is I stacked these questions up. So, like I got about 100 of them, and I'll go through and think, and this one was kind of, I had it and I didn't actually have an answer for it. I was like, there's this and that and this. And then I was listening, and I mentioned this podcast a lot on this show. We have a technical, and technical was doing the new canon, bands that had established themselves in certain genres over the last decade. And they had EBM, industrial, goth, and dark wave. And when they got to goth, one of the bands was Rosegarden Funeral Party. And as soon as they said it, they started debating the decision. They're like, maybe they're more dark wave. What are they? And this actually reminded me of when we played a show with them in Dallas. There were a group of people standing in a circle, and one of them was like, they were all listening intently, or not a circle because they wouldn't be watching the band. They were packed together, and they were listening intently. And one goes, I really like this band, and I don't normally like goth bands. And then somebody else went, oh, they're not a goth band. It's a punk band. And I was like, I think it's what they call post-punk. And somebody else, and they were debating back and forth. And somebody's like, well, what like proto-punk? Like, no, that came before punk. This is like, and one of them was like, well, what are the Pretenders? Whatever the Pretenders are. It was really interesting to watch. I would have chucked in dark wave just to watch them turn on each other. And then Rosegarden played. They played that Sisters of Mercy track. Lucretia, my brain is locking. But anyway, it's the one I sing all the time. One of the people was like, I told you they were goth. But the thing is, Rosegarden, they're very hard to put into a particular category. So it's a very dark band, but it's not so dark that you would say they're goth. They have a punk element. It's very tricky. If you listen, I don't know if you guys have heard it yet. They did a cover of Pulp's Death 2, and listen to that. And then try to tell me what genre you would put that in. It's very, very difficult. And that is, I think that's Leah and company making some very smart decisions about not being able to be pigeonholed. Like, we made a lot of dumb decisions, but there are a lot of new bands making smart decisions. Stoneburner made some smart decisions lately. Bestial Mouths. Like, I'm seeing these bands make smart career decisions. And I'm like, how do you do that? But I'm going to say right now, I'll poll you guys one at a time and ask you, if you were to put Rosegarden Funeral Party into a category, what category would that be? Joe, put the question to you.
I would put them in punk.
Okay. All right, Dan?
I would have said goth punk, if that's a thing. It is now.
It is now. Dean?
I would say punk goth.
All right, well, that actually kind of brings me to my next thing, because the next thing is like having to use a band to describe a genre. It's like when you were young, before everybody knew punk bands, like your aunt would go, hey, you know that you like punk, right? Yeah, Sally, I like punk. All right, your cousin likes that band Def Leppard. Are they punk? No, man, they're not punk. Well, they have Def in their name. No, it's DEF. Are they rap? No, they're not. And just it go on like that. Like, it's the most.
Are there large cats in the band?
Yeah, it was like hanging by your thumbs. Like, now the Grateful Dead, they're punk, right? No, they're not punk. So the genre that I always have trouble describing to people, and I love this genre, and I think it needs a second chance. In fact, you might be able, if you really stretched it to put Rosegarden Funeral Party into this genre, and we are talking about death rock, like the Batcave stuff from England. We're talking like Specimen, Christian Death. Oh, I love that stuff. And so when I try to explain that to somebody, a lot of people, particularly younger people, and a lot of younger people have been raised on happy music, where it's like, like their idea of goth is Beyonce. And you try to explain to them, well, this is like this sort of dark rock and roll. And what I usually do, what I found that helps is the movie Return of the Living Dead. Because even if you don't like horror movies, you've probably seen this movie. There are like Mormon Sunday school teachers who've seen Return of the Living Dead. Say, Return of the Living Dead. And they're like, yeah, trash is getting naked again. All right. Thumbs up to Leanna Quigley, AKA the Quigs. We love you. But the thing is, I say to them, okay, remember that song, do you want to party? Well, it's a party time. And yeah. I'm like, okay, that's by a band called 45 Grave. And it's not the best example of death rock, but when you give an example, it never is. But that's your starting place. And okay, they can kind of picture that, and then they can move forward from there. So for band you can't really pigeonhole, I'm going to say Rosegarden Funeral Party, an excellent example of death rock. I'm going to go with 45 Grave. No reason, 45 Grave. All right, Joseph, and your amazing Technicolor Dream Scrote. What have you got for us?
I would say excellent example of a genre being punk would be Ramones, and they kind of, to me, define, they're like a band that never played anything but punk, straightforward, melodic punk. They had two kinds of punk with the catchy melodies and a heavier, harder edge punk. And they shifted to those two styles through their career, and never really. They were easily, to me, they are the iconic punk band. They even have punk in a couple of their song names in the first album. Judy is a punk. So, a band that was hard for me to pigeonhole, and I've never been that great at genreification anyway, as you probably know from my genre challenge song that I came up with, would be the Butthole Surfers. The Butthole Surfers, at least when they first came on the scene, they were in the punk scene. At least their first record was on Alternative Tentacles, a punk label, but they were like no other punk band. They had a very, they were psychedelic, experimental. Their records used various tape manipulation effects, and their live shows, you could call them like a trance kind of thing, almost grungy at times, but for me, they're hard to pigeonhole. They got kind of normal as they went on and got kind of rock, but and were probably considered alternative rock, which is a strange, not really
the only person in history to say the Butthole Surfers got kind of normal as they went along.
Well, I think they did. I don't know. By the time they were on Capitol Records, I mean, in Hollywood, when they, I think that was their last album that they made. It was a studio album. So yeah, that's what I say.
Cool. I thought of a bunch of bands for ones that defy genre, but I was going to talk about Primus. And then I realized, oh wait, I think actually a good example is the Dead Milkmen. So that was definitely like one of the appeals to me for the band, was that like in an album you could have like maybe 4 or 5 different genres happening. And like you guys always kind of almost did it legit too in your own way. And I think that's what I liked about Not Richard But Dick so much, is that I feel like each song is like different, but they're also genre defying at the same time. I always thought that was almost kind of like a mix album, like a mixtape or something, like somebody would make, because it seems all over the place in a good way. And then for the genre defining, like I just started thinking of genres and what in band I immediately think of. But the one I wanted to focus on was the Clash as defining to me what like punk is, because even though their their last album was pretty crappy, they really just didn't give a fuck, and they just did what they all wanted to do, or at least most of them, I'm sure. And that, you know, I think that still made the people like it, because it was you could tell that that's what, like, Sandinista is such a great album because it's all over the place. It's like, to me, growing up in the 80s, like when I think of that album or I listen to it, it reminds me of the 80s, because it's, each song is almost like a different kind of 80s song. So yeah, I also like runners up. I thought, you know, Slayer is like what I think about with metal. 9 Inch Nails, I think of like industrial music, because that's what I was listening to in like middle school. I put Billy Ray Cyrus for country, because I hate country music so much, and Billy Ray Cyrus is probably like everybody's favorite example of the worst fucking thing on earth. I just realized Bill Hicks has a great piece about Billy Ray Cyrus. Maybe we'll get a link to that. But it's funny, on my phone put Billy Rat Cyrus because it was auto correction.
Caustic has t-shirts that say, yeah, I like 9 Inch Nails, because every time he says, well, I play industrial music, we go, oh, like 9 Inch Nails. They're like, yeah, like 9 Inch Nails.
But you know what? I think when you, with the question, what I thought about was like what I would try to explain to somebody who wouldn't know, like Angel Spit. You know, I'd be like, oh,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. They usually don't know. So you wind up when you say rockabilly, and the thing you can reach for, they know, is the Stray Cats, you know. Or as Dean and I were joking about, we were saying, like, you know, we've actually had people say, you know, oh, you know, I play reggae. Oh, like the Police. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, just that's like exactly it. Bob Marley, indistinguishable from Sting. Dean, I think you might be up, unless Dan's got some more.
Sure. So I'm going to start out with I call it the genre defining group. And I would like to suggest for progressive prog rock that maybe the defining group is King Crimson. I mean, they started all the way back in 1968. There's that album, I guess it's their first album, In the Court of the Crimson King, with that amazing album cover of the screaming guy or whatever. And, you know, they had like Mellotron strings and flute, and they had Greg Lake on vocals, who went on to be in one of my favorite bands back then, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. That was my first like big real rock concert at the Philadelphia Spectrum. I think my favorite lineup of that band, I mean, they've been still going. They're still actually, I think they're touring this year even. They've toured. They've broken up and formed in different lineups. And my favorite lineup was Robert Fripp and Tony Levin and Bill Bruford and Adrian Belew. But to me, they define the prog rock kind of category of music. As for some genre defying group, I'm going to name the Shaggs. Which there's some great quotes I have on a Shaggs compilation. Frank Zappa said they're better than the Beatles even today. And my favorite quote is by composer Carla Bley. She said, "They bring my mind to a complete halt." So yeah, listen to some Shaggs. In fact, every October I pull out this CD and I play it because of one particular song called "It's Halloween."
No, please don't do that.
It's Halloween.
No, please don't. That will bring any. I'm sorry. I love the Shaggs, and it's a great song. But if you put that in a mix, and I actually was one of my favorite ones,
mixes.
That will bring all the fun to a stop.
I don't make mixes. I love that song. Gets played every year here.
I was obsessed with King Crimson's in the Court of the Crimson King when we were making Soul Rotation. You can tell there's a little bit of it that snuck in there. We won't be linking to a YouTube video for that because every time somebody puts it up, it gets taken down. I'm surprised nobody said the Damned. Damned are a good example. Are they a goth band? Are they a punk band? Are they
They're a punk
psychedelic?
band.
Yeah.
They're a punk band.
Also, Rasputina. Rasputina's albums go from these there are these weird, funny little songs like Dwarf Star to these really heartbreaking things like Rose K. So,
I was thinking about the band Blonde Redhead too. They have a like their early stuff is great. It's like noisy and kind of like garagey and surfy almost. And then now it's like really, I don't know, eloquent.
But that doesn't neatly fit into any genre either.
Yeah.
So my recommendation, I am about to paraphrase Bob Dylan's mournful ballad, Guitarzan. It's Saturday night and you need some excitement. This Saturday night, October 2nd. So if you're watching this on October 2nd and it's early in the morning and you don't live in Philadelphia, start planning to get to Philadelphia. We have an old colonial fort called Fort Mifflin. And my buddy, Mighty Mike Saga, is going to take it over. He apparently has 24 different DJs set up in 4 different zones. And one zone has and they're almost like each zone would have a Milkmen in it, because there's one zone that's goth, dark 80s, cold wave, dark wave, and post-punk. That's where I would be. Then we have an industrial future pop, synth pop, industrial bass, aggro tech, cyberpunk. Dean might be there. We also have the drum and bass, hardcore house, hard dance, electro. Joe, you'd find in there. And Dan, you would find at the metal, deathcore, new metal, and rock one. So there's 4 different zones.
Wow.
Yeah, this is going to be amazing. This is like a Scooby-Doo movie where they go down there to so the mask is going to get pulled off somebody who is trying to scare everybody
Those
away.
meddling kids.
Yeah, this is going to be.
Didn't you do like an overnight there, Rodney?
I've slept there twice doing reporting things, but this is going to be amazing. This is going to be the first big sort of event of October. People ignore the rights of October at your peril. It's going to be absolutely amazing. It starts at 6, runs till midnight. You need your COVID card to get in. Also, bring a charger, one of those emergency chargers for your phones, or turn your phone off once you get inside. I learned the hard way, staying there twice, that because of the thick walls and the area, it'll take your battery on your phone, because your phone is constantly trying to get a signal, and it'll just smack it down. So you'll go from 100% charged to about 10% charged in an hour and a half. It is really, really fierce. So bring that stuff, but please be there. This is something you don't want to miss. I'm going to get pictures, and I think you'll enjoy this. So that is my recommendation. And also I'd like to thank the late Bob Dylan, former lead singer of Kajagoogoo, for writing Guitarzan. It's a beautiful song.
It's the ghost of Bob Dylan sucking your battery power.
Yeah, he's like here.
I'd like to recommend a documentary film by Peter Jackson, came out 2018, called They Shall Never Grow Old, or They Shall Not Grow Old. It's about World War I. It's made up entirely of film footage and some stills and some drawings of World War I. Some of it's colorized, some of it's left alone, but the soundtrack is completely made up of English, former World War I veterans speaking about the war, after the war, archived in the BBC archives. And it's put together cleverly and well done. I just watched it the other day and I liked it. And I also like to recommend an EP that just came out on Bandcamp called Let's Build a Logjam. It has 45 tracks that come in at 20 minutes. And it's by SLW CC Watt. I recommended their first album earlier. That's Samuel Lockwood and Mike Watt together. It's pretty good.
I would like to recommend, in the vein of what I consider genre-defying bands, a band called Bern the Bastards from Philadelphia. They have a Bandcamp page. We'll have a link. I had heard of them, and I ended up seeing them, I think, in July at Century Bar, and I was blown away. I was already excited because my favorite bass player of Philadelphia is in that band, James Coop, and Jared on drums. They're a great rhythm section. They're also the rhythm section in the Plibmen, Bunny's band. But they're all over the place, and it's pretty cool. I think if you're in Philadelphia, you should check them out whenever they're playing. I don't know when they're playing, but they will. And, you know, I'd like to dovetail off of Joe's recommendation. There's an old Peter Jackson documentary called Forgotten Silver that you people should check out too. I don't know how easy it is to get, but it was hard to get in the 90s, but it's probably easier now. Sure.
And this October, watch Dead Alive, perhaps Peter Jackson's greatest achievement.
It's got to be the director's cut.
Yeah, director's cut, yes.
I would like to recommend a YouTube series. I can't remember, I may have recommended the series before, but a new episode has just dropped. It's a series of videos put out by Earthquaker Devices, who make guitar pedals. The series is called Show Us Your Junk. And the latest episode came out today with featuring Jonathan Pierce from a band called the Beths, who are from New Zealand. And it's very charming. He talks about how hard it is to get, or was, and probably still is somewhat, to get like musical equipment in New Zealand. Certainly in the 60s and 70s, it was really hard to get stuff like Fender amps. And so people started making their own things in New Zealand. It's a very interesting video called Show Us Your Junk.
And before we go, I would like to thank everybody who was very kind to me when I talked last week about my recent battle with depression. However, some of you asked me about the Depression, which took place in the 1930s. And you were like, did you know Calvin Coolidge, the Waltons? And I'm like, no, how the fuck old do you people think I am? I really, something wrong with the people who watch this show. All right, so that is, there we go. Saying goodbye to everybody.
Follow the rest. Also, rest in peace, Dr. Lonnie Smith, jazz organist. Rock on.
That's it. Go home. Show's over.